Will you hold this in front of me?
Oh, yes, surely.
That's a little too high.
Oh, sorry.
How long did it take you to make this?
About a month.
Uh-huh. Did you use good steel?
Oh, yes, the very best.
Well, some steels are better than others, you know.
Oh, yes, that's
Excuse
true.
me. I think you got a bad piece, but better luck next time. Thanks.
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedman.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios. Hey Joey, what did the world's greatest escape artist do to escape the limelight? He read books.
We're delighted to talk with Barb Rosenstock, a picture book author whose latest book is Houdini's Library. Barb, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Thanks. It's really great to be here.
What sparked your interest in Harry Houdini?
Oh, I had this crush on Tony Curtis in the old Houdini movie when I was like, I don't know, 10. My grandma was a big old movie buff. And so anytime we go visit grandma, you know, there was some old movie on. And that one, I can just remember being fascinated. So if anybody out there hasn't seen it, they really need to go look it up. The whole thing, the Tony Curtis muscles and the hanging upside down in the tank and the death on Halloween, you know, I just remember being really fascinated about that as a kid. Not really particularly like into magic, more just kind of like into Houdini. And then years ago now, I mean, I want to say it was about 8 years ago, I was at the Library of Congress doing some research on Thomas Jefferson. Had nothing to do with this particular book. And there's this little sign in the basement of the Library of Congress that says the Houdini collection or the Harry Houdini collection. And I just remember making a note, like, what in the heck is there? Like, what would be at the Library of Congress that was related to Harry Houdini? And I didn't know if it was, you know, I had this image of it being like some rabbit and an old top hat or something, you know, I didn't really know. And it took me a couple of books to get around to like looking up what exactly was at the Library of Congress. And it turns out to be Houdini's books, of which he had many.
Mentioning the Tony Curtis movie, it's great that a Jewish actor was playing probably the most famous Jew in the world in his day.
Yeah. I certainly didn't put it together then, but yeah, that's true. That's great.
I want to give a shout out to the book's artist, Mar Delmar, whose illustrations are themselves pretty magical. Could you describe her artwork for the book?
Mar is essentially she paints on paper, then turns those little tiny paintings into physical paper objects, kind of like building a diorama. So, like for example, and I'm going to just use the book, like here is a page from the book, and these are all real built objects out of paper that she then sets up in a scene and photographs, lights and photographs them so that they've got kind of a painterly, but yet you can tell that they are real look to them. And it's kind of, to me, it was like having a doll, having someone take my words and the scenes that I had kind of created and turn them literally into a dollhouse, like page by page. Houdini's life, like what did it really look like? What did it feel like to inhabit those spaces, whether they were on the stage or in his house in Harlem or wherever. And so Mar's just an incredible detailed artist, and we really felt it was important her work is so unusual that we felt it was important that she gets her own back matter. So in the back of the book, she's got 2 spreads to kind of explain, and kids have been finding that artwork, that explanation of the artwork, completely fascinating. So I'm glad you guys noticed it and liked it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's almost magical in the sense that it's like an optical illusion. Am I looking at a painting or a drawing, or is this something different? It's like mysterious, like the subject matter of much of Houdini's own work, you know?
Yeah. It's a photograph of a diorama, kind of, I would say. But it depends, because then she goes back in and she'll paint a little, you know, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. We thought it was magical. The art director at Knopf thought like we got a magical artist and we need a magical project. So it all came together. It was great.
You connect Houdini's love of books to his rabbi father, who sailed his books to the United States ahead of his family. The fact that Houdini was book obsessed seems pretty Jewish, no?
Yeah, we've got the whole people of the book thing, right? But actually, I wasn't the one to connect that. Houdini was, just so you know. So I didn't just make that up wholesale. Houdini spent an awful lot of time talking about his father's love of learning and the family that he had come from in Europe. I've got a quote. We have records for 5 generations that my direct forefathers were students and teachers of the Bible and recognized among the leading bibliographers of their time. So he always considered that part of his family legacy, his Judaism too, although he was not a particularly practicing person, like faithful person, but he just kind of considers it's almost like the books became the religion at some point, or they were certainly meshed together in his head with dad, with the rabbinical studies, with the generations that they had left behind in past in Hungary. So yeah, it does seem kind of Jewish. Not kind of, it is. It's fine.
In his library, were there books like Talmudic books and other things that would have been reminiscent of his father's legacy?
Only the ones that were his father's. He actually did that scene in the book where he searches for his father sells the great majority of the books. And I mean, no one knows how many books exactly Houdini's dad had. Let's say a big library for people of that time would have been 50 books. I mean, we're not talking thousands of books at that point. And but his father sold essentially almost all of them. Houdini eventually did buy back a couple of things, and now Houdini's father's Bible, for lack of a better word, it's a combination of a couple of books, but is in the library, was in his collection. So yeah, he did not have like a huge religious collection. The collection was very focused in magic and witchcraft, mind reading, spiritualism. It's definitely had a focus. He wasn't just collecting books, in general. He was collecting around his craft. And initially for purposes of learning it, and then he just couldn't bear to not know everything that there was to know about magic. So he just kept going.
And the name Houdini came from a book he read, correct?
Yeah, Jean-Robert Houdin was a French magician, born, I want to say like 1805, so right at the beginning of the 1800s. Super famous guy. Houdini was not the only person influenced by him. He was a clockmaker, I think, to begin with, and then wound up having his own magic theater and performing his act, wildly popular in his time, and wrote an autobiography about, basically about how great it was to be Jean-Robert Houdin, the magician, right? And about some of his tricks and some of the people he met. And Houdini had picked up that book and was right away like, well, Eric Weiss picked up that book because it was before he was Houdini. And was just like instantly, he speaks about being instantly captivated. Like, that's who I want to be when I grow up. That's it. And it's kind of astonishing because that's exactly who he became. Is a little bit more of a modern version of the super famous magician known around the world. So yeah. And he thought Houdini, if I get the story right, Houdini, he thought it meant like, he thought adding an I to words was like the Italian version of making it like Houdin. So Houdini was supposed to be, I'm like Houdin. It turns out that probably is not exactly grammatically correct in any language, but you certainly can't argue with the name because people still know it today. So
do you know how Houdini transitioned from more standard kinds of magic tricks to the escape artist persona and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. When he first started working with us, he had a very standard magic act early on when he was a young man, card tricks and coins and, and he always kept some of those, things many of his performances, but when he began working with Bess, he started. There's some feeling, and because there's no real proof of this, that Houdini might have worked for a locksmith when he was a boy. He didn't. He quit. He had to leave school somewhere between second and third grade. So we're talking about someone that did not attend very much formal school at all, and went to work. And one of the things that people think he might have been working in some way from a locksmith, because he seems super good at it, super quick, and almost like unbelievably quick, so that there might have been some knowledge there to begin with. But he and Bess began working right away with handcuffs, and it just became the thing that people were the most fascinated by, and it became a way, I think, for him to really interact with the audience. It was like, go ahead, you lock me up now, which is different than standing in front of somebody and just going, and now I'm going to take a coin and take this out of my ear, and now here's a rabbit. It was very interactive, which I think is one of the things that made Houdini so popular with his audiences. It became, see if you can beat me. They were very challenging. They were challenges to companies. Make a box that Houdini can't escape from, make a cage that Houdini can't escape from. Challenges to police departments. Okay, Philadelphia, you think you can lock me up? Go ahead and do it. And if you just think about that difference, that's an enormous leap in the craft, to involve the audience to that degree. They really weren't used to it at that point. So it was pretty cool.
And that stuff was ready-made for the press as well.
Absolutely. I mean, he was a genius. He was a press genius, Houdini. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm going to get locked up in jail. It's another thing to announce it a day ahead of time. Strip yourself naked. Make sure all the guys, every newspaper man in the city is there. And then have the police chief not be able, then get out right in front of the police chief. That is an entirely different, experience. So, and Houdini, at least early on, did his own press. So, it's pretty incredible that he would have both skills, because sometimes being an artist and having people and knowing how to promote yourself are not necessarily one and the same thing. So he definitely could do both. I think out of desperation, quite frankly.
Certainly necessity. Yeah.
Necessity. Well, and even desperation. I mean, it's some hungry, rough years going. I mean, yeah. There wasn't a lot to fall back on. That's for sure.
Another commonplace Jewish story.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah. Especially of those years, yes.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe. There's a wonderful image in the book where the crowd is waiting for Houdini to emerge from a locked container, and he's relaxing backstage behind the curtains reading a book. Is that based on any account?
It is. It actually is. There is a book, Houdini, the Man Who Walked Through Walls. It's by William Gresham, I think. And he based it on an account that he had seen in a book called American Vaudeville, where people had said there was actual eyewitness accounts that Houdini would do a trick, but you can't make, even if it was easy, which it wasn't always, but even when it was, you couldn't make it look that easy, because then where's the anticipation, right? So he would sit behind the stage and just read just waste some time reading whatever was the book on tap for the day. And he did travel with a bookcase with 100 books. Always, everywhere there was this bookcase. I don't think the bookcase, as from what I know, the bookcase doesn't exist anymore. A lot of people have been asking me lately, I'd love to see that bookcase. I'm like, a lot of people are collecting Houdini memorabilia, but that bookcase that I know of hasn't turned up yet. But if anyone has it, it might be David Copperfield, but who knows?
Right, but he won't let you see it. He'll do some trick and make it disappear.
Eventually, I think it's going to have to be opened as a museum. It's just too much, but we'll see. Hopefully, I'll be one of the first people online if it ever does, that's for sure.
Houdini wrote some books himself, including one of my favorites, A Magician Among the Spirits, in which he exposes supposed psychics and paranormal phenomena. Is it true he was a terrible speller?
Well, first of all, it's true that basically anyone before the 1920s was a terrible speller. There just wasn't standardized spelling the same way that we know it now. I mean, at all. I mean, George Washington was a terrible speller too, and he was he was pretty educated, and he was a bad speller. So there is but yeah, Houdini. I mean, when you leave school in second grade, there are things you don't learn to do, and what I found very admirable though is it just didn't occur to him that should be something that should get in your way. I mean, he found people that could read his stuff and say, hey, that's not spelled that way. And had editors and had people who typed up his things, and he just kept going. I mean, his thoughts were fine. It's just his spelling was not.
I will say that as someone who is dyslexic myself and really struggled to learn how to read and write when I was growing up, that part of the book was really inspiring to me to read that he had those challenges. Not that he was dyslexic, but that he didn't let the impediment of this crazy language that you have to spell get in his way.
Yeah, I don't think he really thought about it. I mean, I think Houdini books were home, and books are where he relaxed, and books were also his thought process, how he learned about anything. And it was just the thoughts were more important than the exact words. It's like, you know what I mean, he could keep going. And again, also he was by that time world famous, and doing quite well financially. And so, there were people. He had people like people have people.
A team of editors.
A team of lots of people. A team of magicians, helpers, and a team of people to help in and off the stage, and a team of people to pack the trunks and people. Yeah. It was good to be Houdini at some point. Really good.
Yeah, and he's also a wonderful thinker, exposing supposed psychics and paranormal phenomena, right?
Right. I mean, and I think he really would have. He said, I have an open mind, even at the very end. I mean, he really didn't think that any of the psychics that he had seen, he pretty much proved that they were fraudulent. But it didn't mean that he said that it was impossible. You know what I mean? And I really kind of admired that too. So Houdini was never so sure of his own opinion that he wasn't willing to consider someone else's. And I think that that's kind of the mark of a really educated, like in the real sense of the word, person, is like, yeah, let's talk about it. I don't know. I've never been dead. Have you? So who knows what really happens, right? And so he was always willing to entertain possibilities, and therefore could like be really close friends with like Conan Doyle, who was a huge believer in spiritualism. And, at some point the friendship completely fell apart. But really for a long time, they were two people at opposite ends of the spectrum, and they had dinner together and talked it through, and, spent a lot of time just discussing what they completely disagreed on. And it to me is kind of cool. It was kind of, yeah, I think we could use more of it, basically.
A part of me thinks that friendship was a model for Fox Mulder and Dana Scully on X-Files. You have the firm believer and the doubter,
Right. You've got a true believer and a doubter, the true believer was much more of a true believer. The doubter could have gone either way. It's just that he never thought, he never found he just knew it was magic. I mean, for the most part, what he was seeing were people who were doing his craft, which he knew an awful lot about. And so he's like, yeah, okay, well, now take your hands from under the table and do that. I mean, he just knew the trick. I mean, he knew what could have been done, but as a concept, speaking to people beyond the doubt, I mean, I think he loved his parents, his mother especially. And when she passed, I think he would have loved nothing better than to be proven wrong and to have been able to communicate with her one more time. I mean, that's clear from all of his writing. It was a very emotional topic for him. So he wasn't a doubter. He wasn't a scoffer. You know what I mean? He wasn't like someone who just went, that's stupid. Nobody should believe. You know what I mean? There was a real intellectual curiosity there. And like, hey, I don't think you're it, but as far as it being a possibility, it might exist. I did a book about the Fox sisters right before Houdini, and that's all spiritualism too. So I think they kind of blend in my mind a little bit, but
Yeah, I wonder if part of Houdini's openness was just how much spiritualism, seances, all that stuff was such a big part of the culture at the time that it was very normal to believe in this stuff, and maybe he felt there might be something to it,
yeah, yeah. Well, anytime that there's any kind of it's like tragedy, right? Spiritualism came about right before the Civil War, was very popular through the Civil War, kind of died back off. Very popular again during World War One, which is Houdini's time. You know what I mean? So it kind of is a waving. It's kind of back on the upswing right now, as a matter of fact. Not in the exact same way, but definitely you see a lot more tarot cards and reading and people doing zodiac signs and all of that is, it's on another wave of can we communicate and, maybe AI has its own intelligence, like all of that kind of thing. Like what is AI spiritual? Can it be, those kind of questions. I mean, it's just coming up again. So I think it's interesting, not necessarily, I'm a pretty big skeptic myself, but I do think it's interesting.
What do you hope kids take away from Houdini's library?
First of all, what I always do when I write a picture book like this is I'm trying really hard to just tell a story that I find fascinating in a way that a kid will find fascinating. So I really try really hard not to be preachy. Like preaching to kids to me is just not necessary and not a turn and kind of a turn off. What I hope anybody would take out of reading Houdini's story is just like, look what you can do with a book that has nothing to do with school. Really. I mean, he had to leave school. He did not have books. His family had said, these are important things. We can't afford them right now, but these are important things. You might, if you get any extra dime, if you get an extra dime, you might want to pick up a book. And he did, and he gave himself a career, and he made himself into the most famous entertainer on the planet. I mean, that's arguable, but I don't know, besides like Jenny Lind, I don't know who else would even come close in that day and age, and certainly Jenny Lind does not still have a Dua Lipa song about him or her, I mean, so the name and just the idea that Houdini is to, escape the way Einstein is to smart. I mean, it just is. It's part of the language. So he's transitioned just like almost out of his personality. Reading's magic. You can go anywhere with it. And Houdini really knew that. I mean, his favorite kind of magic was picking up something he didn't know. And at the end, knowing something that, knowing something new. I just think that that's cool. And I think he did too.
Well, thanks so much, Barb, for joining us.
Thanks.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.